So quick show of hands, how many people here have developed for Windows Mobile in the past? OK, quite a lot of you. How many of you are Silverlight developers? A few less. How many WPF developers? OK, how many people that know .NET? None of you know .NET, wow. I just wanted to know that because if you've done Windows Mobile in the past, this will be quite a difference for you. Hopefully it's a positive difference. If you've done Silverlight or WPF, I actually won't go into much detail today about the technology and the coding and so on. That's more of the follow-on sessions. This is really like the high-level, it's a 200-level session, kind of what's different about Windows Phone from the past and what it means to you as a developer. So there's three things we're going to talk about today. First is a general strategy and philosophy and what has changed from Windows Mobile 6 and before. I'll give you a demo of just the phone, and then later on we'll have a demo of some of the tooling at a high level. And then, of course, developer overview about what it actually means to design, develop, test, sell your applications on Windows Phone 7. So let's start with our new direction. So in the past, we've had Windows Mobile 6.5, 6.1, 6, 5, 2003, et cetera, et cetera. And in the past, our strategy for Windows Mobile has really been about hardware diversification. So you could buy Windows Mobile on lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of different form factors. And our goal there was, give people as much choice as they want, give carrier choice, give hardware choice. And that was successful from the point of view of the number of types of devices that were in the market. And it was successful from an IT point of view in that Windows Mobile was a great enterprise story. It was managed through Exchange. It was great selling from the IT department down. But of course, what's changed in the more recent years is that it's the end users that buy the phones, and we need to appeal to the end user that buys the phone, takes it into the organization. And so our new direction is really focused on less about the hardware diversity, although we still have hardware diversity, and less about the IT department dictating what to use, although, of course, we still do things like Exchange and so on. And it's more about a great consumer experience and a great consumer phone. So first thing is we put design first. As I mentioned, we do still have hardware diversity. I'll talk about that a little bit. But it's in a more restricted sense. Every phone will have a GPU, for example. Every phone will have capacitive touch. There is a minimum bar that every phone will have so that we can guarantee a really good user experience. We also spent a ton of time on the first-party experiences, so our start menu, our built-in email and calendar and pictures applications. So can I get some water, please? Sorry, thank you. So we put a ton of effort into designing the Windows Phone experience. And I'm sure you've all seen YouTube videos or other videos on the web about those experiences. The next thing is that we really focused on a new developer platform. So early versions of Windows Mobile based on native code or old versions of .NET. Powerful, you can build some good applications with those, but has anyone ever tried to do transparency on a button in .NET WinForms? Yeah, it's hard, right? Doing really rich, graphical, beautiful experiences in .NET WinForms is incredibly hard. And so what we've done with Windows Phone 7 is said, well, Silverlight, that's a really great platform that Microsoft has. It's really great for doing rich, engaging experiences. And XNA, which is used on the Xbox and Windows, and it's great for game development. Let's take those two great platforms, put them on the phone, and let developers build these really cool, engaging, visually rich apps. And then finally, the hardware standardization. So you will get a choice of keyboard or no keyboard, or which manufacturer you want to purchase the phone from, or certain things like camera resolution or other features. But there is a minimum bar that we've specified for hardware, and that experience from a software point of view is optimized for that hardware. So we can guarantee that every phone will have certain capabilities, and you can exploit those in your applications. So there's two ways that I'm going to talk about how our design is different in Windows Phone versus some of the competition. One of them is smart design, and one of them is integrated experiences. And smart design, what we mean there is, again, with Windows Mobile in the past, we kind of took a PC and we shrunk it down. So you had a start menu, and you had icons, and you had things that looked like Windows applications running on your phone. And then some of the newer entrants into the market have also taken the idea of icons and putting them on a screen and making desktop applications work a little bit better on the phone. But what we've done is we've really thought about what it means to be working on the phone, what it means to be on the go, to be mobile, and to actually have the most important things at your fingertips. And that's what we mean by smart design. And if you've seen things like an email client or a calendar client or the way the start menu works with putting information at your fingertips, it really is designed around things that make sense for mobile, not just scaling down PC things and putting them on a phone. And then the other thing is these integrated experiences. So things like the hubs we have, Music and Video Hub, People Hub, etc., they take diverse pieces of content that are related and put them together in one place. So you're not always going from the start screen to an application, back to the start screen to another application, back to the start screen to another application. If you want to look at pictures, for example, you go to the Pictures Hub. And from there, you can look at pictures you've taken with the camera, pictures you've synced from your PC, pictures you have on Windows Live, pictures you have on Facebook, and you can also do things like launch picture editing applications from that Photos Hub. So we have these integrated experiences that mean the user doesn't have to remember which application does what or hunt through a menu to find different applications. They can start with content and from there go and launch the application that they want. So this is, anybody seen the movie Helvetica, documentary Helvetica? One person, very good film. It's about the font Helvetica. And basically every sign you've ever seen anywhere is in Helvetica. And so this is a picture of railway stations and airports and other things where people need to get information quickly. So many of you probably traveled to get here today. You probably went through an airport or a train station or a bus station. And the typography that's used and the way these signs are built is designed to get you the information you need without any clutter. And so we took this as a design input into Windows Phone 7. And you'll notice that we have a very strong bent around typography. Thank you. A very strong degree of minimalism, getting clutter out of the way, getting things out of the way. And it's all part of that smart design of getting the information to you and letting you do things quickly on the run and not be distracted. And so here are just a few examples of some of the screens in Windows Phone 7 talking about this minimalism and this use of typography. So on the left is the Start menu. You can see there we have what we call our live tiles. You can instantly see you've got 2 voicemails, 3 SMSs, and 20 email messages without going to any applications. The profile picture and the contact information, again, very minimal. There's no gradients or round corners or things getting in the way. Calendar, very minimalistic. And then People as well is one of these minimalistic UIs that really lets you focus on the content and the information. So here's a picture of one of those hubs. This is the Music and Video Hub. It's these panoramic experiences that the phone has that brings together lots of different content. And I'll be showing you a demo of how to build one of these yourselves later on. Very, very easy. And there are a bunch of them. We have People, which brings together contacts from the phone, from Exchange, from Windows Live, from Facebook, from Google, etc. Office, which brings PowerPoint, Word, Excel, SharePoint, OneNote together. Pictures, which, as I was mentioning, has your camera, your synced photos, your Facebook photos, your live photos, etc. Music and Video, which is the music that you've synced and videos you've synced or taken with the phone. Marketplace, which is where you'll get all the great apps, games, content, etc. And then, of course, Games, which is specific to the Xbox Live games. And these are the hubs that we have in the phone. And as I said, you can build your own, and we'll build one again. We'll build one in a minute. So this is a bit of an overview of the hardware that we have. So as I said, we have a consistent set of hardware, minimum hardware guidelines for manufacturers. They can do more than this in certain cases, but there are consistent things that we define. For example, every phone at launch will be a 480 by 800 pixel display. You won't have to worry about 320 by 320 or 640 by 480 or 854 by 480 or all these other different resolutions. There's only one resolution at launch. Now, that said, we will be releasing another resolution in the future, 480 by 320, half VGA, to enable some of the smaller form factors. But when that happens, we'll provide tooling and guidance and so on to help developers build applications that match that. But at launch, there's only one resolution to worry about. Every phone as well will be capacitive touch. No more styluses. Every phone will be capacitive touch, At least 4 points of touch, so you can do gaming or multi-user gaming on the phone. They'll all have fast processors. They'll all have GPUs. These are all guaranteed. There will be a minimum amount of RAM that will be available to everybody. And the keyboard is really the main optional feature. So you might have seen the prototype devices going around. There's a Samsung without a keyboard and an LG with a keyboard. There are other minimum capabilities, for example, a camera with autofocus and a flash and so on. And the manufacturers are free to increase what our minimum bar is there. So instead of a 5 megapixel camera, they might have an 8 or a 10 megapixel camera. So there are places where the OEMs can build better phones, but they can't go lower than our minimum bar. So talking a little bit about our application platform, talk about these 4 things: philosophy, design, experience, and platform. And we'll start off talking a little bit about applications today. And so this is a picture of a Level application. It's a very basic application. It lives on the phone, and it doesn't have any connections to anything else. You don't need an Azure web service to run your Level app, for example. And there are tons of these applications out there, simple utilities like this, or games, or other apps that make sense to run just on the phone itself, and that's fine. But the more engaging experiences that we see tend to be ones that are driven by the cloud. So here, for example, is a weather application. And of course, it's not just the code running on the device that makes a weather application. It's stuff running on the back end. So the weather app uses data maybe from your service or maybe from someone else's service, and that's really starting to drive these connected applications. And so in the past, let's go back a few years, everybody was building rich client apps. Everyone was building apps for the PC. And then the web came along, and everybody was building websites. They said, OK, I need a website. It'll run in a browser. And then different devices started to come along. And you could run a website in a browser on these devices, but it wasn't necessarily the best experience. For example, on a PC, on a laptop, there's a certain user interface that's used there. You have a keyboard, you have a mouse, you want information density, you have a high-resolution screen. That's one particular way of using an application. On the TV, you have a larger screen, but typically you're using a controller or remote control. There might be people there. It might be a more social type of interaction. And so the type of experiences and the type of UI that you have on a TV will be different from what you'll want to do on the PC. And then the phone and other devices come in, and they have unique attributes as well. So with the phone, it's even smaller. It has a limited battery life. It has a touch-based interface. But it's mobile. It's on the go, and it can do things like have location and so on. And so doing things inside a browser gives you a lowest common denominator, but it doesn't give you the best of all these worlds, the best of the PC, the best of the TV, the best of the mobile, and best of other devices. So typically what people do is they take what was a website and they kind of push it into a web API, so a REST service or a SOAP service, that then can drive all these rich clients that are built uniquely for each one of these particular clients. And it turns out that in the end, you typically don't just use your web API, but you end up using all these things in the cloud. So the cloud does things like identification. It does storage. It has services like the weather example or the TV used here. And so your app starts using more and more of these cloud-based services. And what we've done with the application platform is built a platform that is designed to work with the cloud. And if you were here for the previous topic, they were talking about Windows Azure and rendering ray tracing on a Windows Azure server. And Windows Phone is a great client for Windows Azure. Just like all these other devices, you can do the bulk of your processing in the cloud. You can have common code that runs across each of these devices. And then you have a user experience that is tailored for each of these particular interactions, the PC, the phone, and the TV. So I didn't want to go too far without a demo. This is going to be a very simple demo, though. And first of all, and I apologize, we were trying to get this projector working. It's kind of blurry. First of all, this is engineering prototype hardware, so the touch is not the best. I apologize. First of all, I just wanted to show you the Level application, since that was in the slide. So this is a very simple Level application that we have on the phone. You can see the little ball moves around. If I tilt it this way, I get more of the traditional horizontal level. This way, the horizontal level. So I just wanted to show you the level application because that is the one that I mentioned in the slide deck. But more interestingly, of course, is the weather application. So let's try this device. This is another engineering prototype device. So here we have, down here, a tile for weather. And you'll see that immediately, because I'm on a mobile phone and the phone has guaranteed GPS, it knows that I'm in Auckland. So without even typing anything in, it knows that I'm in Auckland. Something that would make sense for this device, but might not make sense for a TV or a PC, because, of course, they tend not to have GPSs in them. But again, using the smartness in the devices, the smartness in the client, we can build tailored experiences for each of our endpoints. If I click on Auckland here, it'll show me the forecast. So unfortunately, you can't read that forecast. But this is just getting data from the web. Very simple, clean experience. Again, using the Metro guidelines. So it's very sparse. You get the data you need, but you don't get any additional fluff. And if I want to, I can go ahead and add a city, except I can't add a city because there's no network available. So apparently the networking isn't working in this room. But I could click add. I could add a city. I could add Melbourne, where I'm from. I could add Seattle, where I'm also from. I could add a bunch of different cities here. And this is just a very simple example of a weather application that can use code that's used on the web or use code that's used on the PC, but use it in a very mobile-specific case with a mobile user interface and mobile features like location. So there were three goals we had with the application platform. First one is enable users to personalize their phones. So that you can do that by changing the color scheme. You can also do that by installing the applications that make sense for you. So someone might install a bunch of games. Someone might install a bunch of productivity applications. It's all about letting you make the phone yours. The other thing, of course, is helping developers be profitable. And when we say profit, we don't necessarily mean money. For some people, profit is money. For other people, being profitable means having bragging rights because they have an app that's been downloaded X number of times. Or they can take it to their mum and say, look, mum, look what I've done. So profit doesn't necessarily mean money, although for a lot of people it does. And then, as I've been talking about, enabling these cloud-powered experiences is one of the things we really wanted to do on the phone. Not just focus on these isolated apps that run on the device and do nothing else, but really apps that leverage the cloud to do really, really cool things. So there are 4 parts of the application platform: client, server, tools, and services. And I'll talk about all 4 of these in a little bit of detail. As you can see, there's tons of words and buzz phrases in those boxes. We'll touch on most of these, each of these in sequence, so don't try to read them all right now. It's just kind of a shock and awe slide that this is all the stuff that you get with Windows Phone. So first, let's look at cloud services, and this is obviously stuff that runs on the server. Now, Windows Phone, running Silverlight and Xna and the .NET Framework, so it has a great heritage in web stuff. Right? We have web client, we have HTTP web request, you can do JSON, you can do SOAP, you can do REST. Excuse me, all the great frameworks that you need and that you've come to know with .NET are available on the phone, which makes it a great client for the cloud. And there are 3 types of things you can connect to. There are your own web services, so if you build a private cloud or you build a service today, you can expose that, maybe you already have, and the phone can consume that service and be a great client for that service. There's also other existing web services out there, so there's a ton of things out there. Facebook is example here. The weather service that gives you weather for the weather application. Sports. There's tons of services out there that you can connect to. And then Microsoft, of course, has a bunch of services too. The ones you might already know about, like Windows Live and Bing and Xbox Live. But there are 2 new ones that we have specifically for the phone. One is the notification service, and one is the location service. I'll talk about them next. But all of these things you can, of course, consume on your application, using SOAP or using REST or using JSON or anything that you actually feel makes sense for you. So our location service is something that's built into the client, and it's built into a service that we run. On the device, every device will have GPS. It's one of those mandatory features that a manufacturer can't take out. So every phone has a GPS. And we will do cell tower and Wi-Fi triangulation as well. So coverage varies by location. For example, in the US, we have a lot more data points right now than we do in, say, New Zealand. But as more and more people use the phones and we gather more data, we'll get more and more accurate cell tower and Wi-Fi triangulation. It uses a combination of smarts on the phone, like the GPS, and also the cloud service to let you get accurate fixes even when you don't have a GPS, for example, because you're indoors. Like now, my phone has a GPS chip, but I won't get a GPS signal because I'm indoors. But using the Wi-Fi or the cell triangulation, talking back to our back-end service, we can give you a good idea of where you are. And this also lets you balance things like accuracy and power consumption, because, for example, a weather application doesn't need to know where I am to the nearest meter. It only needs to know the postcode or the town I'm in. And so it can use the cell tower or Wi-Fi triangulation and get a perfectly good fix in Auckland. But of course, if you're doing a much more precise application, like an application that tracks your jogging, for example, and you want to remember where you've actually been, you actually need the more precise ability of the GPS. And you'll pay the cost in terms of additional power, but that's OK because that's what your application needs. But for the weather application that doesn't need that degree of detail, it doesn't need to use as much power because it can just rely on the cell tower and Wi-Fi triangulation. Now, the other service that we have is the push notification service. And again, this is some code on the client and some code that we write on the server, as well as some code that you write on the server as well. So essentially, in your application, you create what's called a push notification channel, which is a channel between the device, the Microsoft service, and your application. And you then communicate that channel ID up to the service, your service, and wait for something interesting to happen. And then when something interesting happens in your service, you ping our notification service in the cloud. It finds the right device and sends a notification to the user through a tile update or a toast, or if the application is running, through data in that application. And I'll go into more detail about this in the Building Applications Part 2 tomorrow. But this is just a high-level view of how notifications work. It's a kind of a three-way dance between the phone, your web service, which has the data you care about, and our web service, which knows how to find the phone and push data up to it. Next, of course, is the client runtime. And the two big ones here are Silverlight and XNA, you see at the top of the box here. So Silverlight, a lot of you popped up your hand saying you've done Silverlight or a Windows Presentation Foundation before. So Silverlight is, it's a modern UI framework based on XAML and code. It lets you do very, very visually rich applications with media and animation and so on very quickly using our great tooling around Blend. On the phone, we do style control so that they match the rest of the phone by default. So instead of a button being kind of a gray button with a gradient and curved edges and a blue border, it looks square and black and white, just like a Metro button should. We also have the ability to embed HTML controls into the application, so you can use HTML and JavaScript as well inside your application. And just kind of throwing out a number here, there's around 500,000 Silverlight developers on the platform today. So there's a great community out there of people that are already building Silverlight apps. Some of you are in this room. But it's not a new thing we're inventing. Silverlight's been out for a while now. It's an established technology, and it's the primary application platform component you use for building non-game applications. So data snacking applications or data entry applications or anything that isn't a fast-paced action game you would build typically in Silverlight. Although you can build games in Silverlight if you like. Now the other half is XNA. And again, XNA isn't something new that we invented for the phone. XNA has been out for several years now. It's used on Xbox, the console, and it's used on Windows as well. Excuse me. And so we have lots of developers today building and selling applications in XNA, on the console and on the PC. And XNA is really where you go for if you want to do a high-performance game. You want 2D sprites, you want 3D graphics, you want great media integration with sound effects, for example. And this is also across all the three screens. You can have XNA on the console, XNA on the phone, XNA on the PC. And the amount of code that you use is almost all of it. So you can take the core of your game in XNA Game Studio, and then you target the PC, and you might have a particular resolution, and you might optimize it for mouse and keyboard. Then you take exactly the same game, you target it for the console, you might increase the resolution of your assets a little bit because it's a high-definition TV, and you use the control sticks and the buttons on the controller. And then, you take the exact same project and target it for the phone using touch and accelerometer, and maybe scale down the assets a little bit because the screen is so small. But you can really take the same core game, same core assets across all 3 screens with XNA. And then, of course, on the web with Silverlight, you can take the same core assets and the same core engine across the PC and the phone. So these 2 client runtimes we have, both of them are mature, both of them have a lot of users already, and both of them let you scale across not just the phone, but hundreds of millions of PCs, and in XNA's case, tens of millions of consoles. So you're not just limited to the number of phones in market if you want to sell your application. So just a bit of a summary again. Silverlight is really rich 2D graphics and media. Used Microsoft Expression Blend. I'll have a demo of that in a minute. Any Blend users? I guess anyone that's done Silverlight and WPF has used Blend. Blend for that. Great for everything except high-performance games, although you can write certain kinds of games in Silverlight. And then XNA is great for 2D, 3D graphics, great for doing anything that needs your traditional update, draw loop, 30 times a second. Anything that does that, XNA is great. And of course, you can build non-game applications in XNA if you want to. It's trickier because it doesn't have a built-in control set and it doesn't have the UI kind of building blocks that Silverlight does, but nothing stops you building a non-game application in XNA. And the tooling here is Visual Studio and the XNA content pipeline. Now, Silverlight and XNA at the top really only define the input and output mechanisms that you use for your phone application. So Silverlight uses XAML, XNA uses sprites and 3D and so on. A lot of things under the covers are shared by both frameworks. So they both support touch. They both support the back button. Both can capture audio, playback audio. Both of them can use, of course, .NET things like isolated storage and link. Both can use sensors, accelerometer, etc. And both of them can use the notification service and the location service I mentioned. And there really is a ton of functionality that's in XNA that you can use in Silverlight, and it's in Silverlight you can use in XNA, as long as it's not related to how you draw pixels on the screen. So if there's an API you like in XNA, for example, access to the media library to play something from the Zune database, you can do that in a Silverlight application. So when you choose XNA or Silverlight, that doesn't dictate all the APIs that you're restricted to. That's really just the UI layer. Everything else underneath is shared between the two. So I'll talk a little bit now about the application model that we have on the phone. And really, it's driven by this desire to have great user experiences. Remember that first, on the introduction slide, the first thing I talked about was the user experience. It's really our #1 deciding factor when we built Windows Phone 7. And by great user experiences, we mean things that are predictable for the user, things that are safe for the user, things that are high performance, and things that are innovative. Right? So we don't want clunky, uninnovative, unsafe, random apps. Right? Nobody wants that. And there are really 3 things that come together to build that. First of all is, of course, the .NET Common Language Runtime. And that gives us things like predictability and safety. Type-safe language, you can't go ahead and read random memory locations. You can't trash the file system. You can't do a bunch of things because of the safety that's built into the .NET Compact framework. It also makes it common across the screens as well. So the code you run on the phone can run on the web and can run on the Xbox. But that's kind of beside the point right now. The Common Language Runtime is how we get the predictability and the safety. The next is the process model that we have. On the phone, most things don't run in the background. So there are a few things that run in the background, like music playback, email syncing, and so on. But most applications are either running in the foreground or they're suspended. And I talk a lot more about this in my building applications for Windows Phone Part 2 tomorrow if you want to know more about the process model. But essentially, it's a foreground processing only model. And that gives us things like the high performance and the predictability as well. Because if an application is running in the foreground, it knows it has all the CPU and it has all the GPU and it has all the network bandwidth and has all the memory that it needs. It won't get bogged down by some background process that just suddenly decided to start chugging up CPU. So the process model helps us get the high performance and the predictable user experiences. And then services-based deployment is how we do things like predictably install an application and uninstall an application. Right? It's not like the old days in the desktop Windows where you ran setup.exe and who knows what happened. Right? We have a very safe install process, a very safe uninstall process, and an update process that, again, makes it predictable and safe for you to build and install these applications. Now, the life cycle of an application there's three parts. First of all, there's the ZAP itself. So anyone that's built Silverlight before knows that you come out with a ZAP, which is basically a zip file. And this is a uniquely identifiable, licensable, and serviceable package. Uniquely identifiable just means that every application has a unique ID, a GUID, so that we know every single application that's in the system, and we can uniquely identify them. Licensable means that in order to run the application, a user has to have a license. Even if they get the ZAP from you, so someone hacks a phone, takes a ZAP, puts it on another phone, without a license, they're not allowed to run that application. So this is how we do things like make sure you get paid for your applications, because the application must be licensed. And it's serviceable. Right? So as I mentioned, with our install, uninstall, update process, each application can be serviced individually. Now, the deployment process is very, very easy. When you're developing, you go through Expression Blend or you go through Visual Studio, pops it onto the phone. And when you want to sell it, you go through our developer marketplace, which will put it into the marketplace to let people put it onto their phones. And this includes things like validation, making sure that you don't try and do anything disallowed in your application, like try and use unsafe code, for example. It also lets us certify it against our content guidelines and our certification requirements. We have a very transparent certification process. All our guidelines are up on the web, so you won't get apps rejected for random reasons. We do have a very transparent process for that. And of course, we will sign it, because apps won't run on the phone if they're not signed. Because again, they could be rogue applications. They wouldn't be predictable. They wouldn't be trustworthy. And then, as I mentioned, your application gets licensed. So the user buys an application or downloads a free application. They get issued with a license for that application, and that lets the application run on the phone. So that was some of the client runtimes. So let's look at some of the tools you use. Now, in the past, some of you said you've done Windows Mobile 6 development in the past, and that's not the best experience in the world. Right? You download Visual Studio 2008, then you download an SDK for this, and an SDK for that, and an emulator for this, and an emulator for the other, and this, that, and the other. And 2 days later, you're up and running, and maybe you can build Hello World. With Windows Phone 7, we said that's got to change. It's completely different. So we have one single integrated download. If you have reasonable internet speed, it's about a 20-minute download setup experience. So with this download, you get Visual Studio 2010 Express, if you don't already have it. If you already have Visual Studio, you get a plugin that lets you do phone development. You get Expression Blend 4 for the phone if you don't already have it. And if you already have Expression Blend 4, you get plugins and SDKs that let you do development. You get the Windows Phone emulator, which lets you emulate your application on the PC. And you get various other SDK-like things like some icons and so on. So everything's integrated into one download. It's completely different from Windows Mobile in the past. The other thing, of course, is that it's free. Right? In the past, Visual Studio 2008, I don't know what it cost in New Zealand dollars, but in American dollars, it's quite expensive. Expression Blend, again, it's quite expensive. These tools are all free for doing phone development. The tools right now are in beta, so you can download them, start building applications, emulating them right now. And we announced just the other day that they will RTM September 16th. So come September 16th, you can hit Control-Shift-B on your project for the last time and have it ready to ship in the marketplace. And of course, you get them from developer.windowsphone.com. How many people have already downloaded the tools? Anyone? OK, quite a few of you. So you already know where it is. So now I want to do a bit of a longer demo. And this is going to be a demo with Expression Blend. And this is how to build a panoramic experience without any code at all. Just kind of to show the difference between old mobile development and Windows Phone 7 development, and also potentially some of the other platforms and how Windows Phone 7 works. So let's go across to Expression Blend. And I do apologize, in that Expression Blend won't let me make the menu items bigger or smaller. So I'll talk you through it, but you might not be able to see exactly every menu item I choose. But the one thing you'll notice is I don't use any code. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new project, and I'm going to create a Panorama application. Now, this is one of the things that's going to come with the final RTM tools on September 16th. The beta today does not have the Panorama in it, but on September 16th, you will get this version that has the Panorama in it. So let's call this TechEd NZ Demo. OK. And out of the box, it's given me a default Panorama application. I'll just go ahead and run that just so you see what it does out of the box. Here's the emulator. It consists of a very simple panoramic application that has some data-bound list boxes and 2 items. So nothing really exciting here, unless, of course, you come from the Windows Mobile 6 background, and it would have taken you probably months to build this. But this is all for free without doing any work at all. So let's go back and let's delete the content that was already in this application for me. So we'll delete those, and we'll delete the data. And I'm going to drag in some assets that I've prepared earlier. I have an application icon, a tile, a splash screen image. So there are some assets that will help the way that the application is presented on the home screen and the way that the splash screen happens when the application loads, a panorama background, and some images. So I'm going to add all of these to my project. And overwrite all the existing ones, yes. So now, my panorama, first thing I'm going to do is change the background so it looks a bit prettier than the default one. So let's go ahead and we'll change this to panorama background. So now we have our nice TechEd background. Then I'm going to add 3 panels to this panorama. One is going to be a little bit of information about TechEd that I stole off the web. One is going to be some pictures that I stole off the web. And the third one is going to be some session information I stole off the web. But they all came from the TechEd site, so I think it's OK to steal these. So let's add panorama item. 1, 2, 3. So now I have 3 panorama items in my panorama. And this first one, let's just call this about. And here's the text that I said I stole from the web. It's actually from the TechEd homepage. There's just some text here. So we'll copy that, add a text block to my page. And let's increase the font size a little bit so we can see that. A little bit smaller, medium, large. So those of you that can actually see, I'm actually using some resources here for things like font sizes, font names, colors, and so on. We have all the standard Windows Phone resources built into Blend, so I can just go here and pick standard sizes like huge, large, medium, large, etc. So you don't have to worry, is that 14 points or 15 points? We already have it for you built into the system. So that's my first page. My second page, sorry, item. My second item, I want to have some images there. So let's go ahead and make this a horizontal panorama item because I want my images to go horizontally. I'll give it a title of pictures. And we're going to drag in these 6 pictures. OK. So make sure they don't stretch. Make sure they all have no margin. And then I'm going to group them into stack panels so that they look a bit prettier. The first 3 we'll put into a stack panel. Group into stack panel. We'll make it a horizontal stack panel. The next 3 we'll group into a stack panel. Again, let's make that a horizontal. We'll group both of these into a vertical stack panel. And now we just reset a bunch of things. Reset the margins. And this worked before. I missed it. Hang on. I'm going to do the other one. I'm going to do a grid. So I'm going to drag these in. I apologize for that one. Reset this. I thought the stack panel would be easier, but the grid is going to be easier. I'm going to add some rows and some columns to my grid. Columns, 1, 2, 3. Rows, 1, 2. OK. Set this to none. 1, 1. OK. So then these three are going to be in the first row. These three are going to be in the second row. These two are going to be in the second column. And these two, this is much easier, see? I thought stack panel would be easier, but apparently not. And then I'm going to add a little bit of a margin to all of these so that they look a bit better. So that's my second panorama item. And my third panorama item, what I'm going to do here is just add some session information. So we'll call this sessions. And I'm going to pull in some XML data that I, again, stole from the web. So here we just look at this session data here, open with IE. You can see this is just a standard XML file that contains session names, titles, descriptions, etc. So go into Expression Blend, go to our Data tab. We'll go to Add from a data source. We'll call it Session, Browse, Session List. OK, and what it's done is it's imported that XML, it's created some objects for us, and now I can data bind against those objects. So if I take this session collection, drag it into here, it's going to create a list box for me, a very small list box. Let's reset that. And it's put everything together just in a very simple list like that, which doesn't look very good. So now I'm going to make that look a little bit better by editing the item template, which is used to create these items. So what it's done is it's basically taken all the properties of my sessions, the name, the session ID, the speaker, etc., and just laid them out one after the other. And it's done them in alphabetical order, which isn't very helpful. So the first one it's got there is actually the description, which we're going to put at the bottom. Then we have the session title, which is OK. We have the speaker, which should go down a little bit further. We have the title. So now you can see we have session ID, title, author, date, and description. And to make this a little bit prettier, we're going to put this into a stack panel as well. We're going to make this one horizontal. We're going to put the next two into a stack panel as well. Group into stack panel. Make that one horizontal. And this text block here we're going to make wrap so it looks a bit better. And so we're starting to get a better looking list box here. And again, no code so far. But it still looks kind of weird. You've got just tons of text here. It's not laid out very well. So let's go ahead to these two items here. Let's make them a little bit larger. Medium large. Let's put a bit of a margin there so you can see what's happening. And you can see as it changes this particular item, it changes all the items in the list. So the writing geolocation wave changes just like the first one changes. Let's look at our next one, a stack panel. Let's go ahead and dim this a little bit because it's not as important. So we'll make the font size a little bit smaller. Make that small. And we'll use one of these phone resources as well to de-emphasize the text a little bit. So there's a brush for subtle brush. You can see it kind of dims it down a little bit. And we'll do the same thing to add a bit of a gap there. We'll add some padding. And then lastly, we have the description. And you can see the first one where it says the title says it all is fine. But the next one, the right in the geolocation wave, has a ton of text. There's really too much text there. So we're going to add a maximum height to this. Let's try 100. That looks a bit better. So we can fit 4 lines of text there. And let's go ahead and differentiate things a little bit as well, because it's still text, 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 text. It's hard to see where one starts and when the other begins. Sorry, one ends, the other begins. Let's go ahead, add a rectangle to the top, make it 12 pixels high. And we will use the, we'll go ahead and use another resource. We'll use the phone accent resource here, so that whatever color the user has chosen on their phone, so it's blue or green or pink or red or whatever, we'll actually pick up that highlight color and use it here. And then finally, we'll space things out a little bit by adding some margin on the bottom. OK. So now I'm ready to hit F5. And here we have my panorama application. So I have images, I have a data-bound list, I have my about screen. So I have all this stuff built in about 10 minutes with no code at all, right? And so that's the power of Expression Blend and the Windows Phone developer platform. And of course, I could hand this off to a developer to actually go and really pull data from the web for that list of sessions rather than the hard-coded XML file. I could actually give it to my developer, who opens this exact same project in Visual Studio, replaces the static XML with some XML that comes from a service, and I have my application ready to submit to the marketplace for TechEd 2010. So let's go back to the slides. So application testing with the tools is pretty easy. You start off with your Zap that you build from Expression Blend or you build from Visual Studio. You use the emulator or the device. I was just using the emulator there. I was going to show you on the device, but the projector is not very good. But I can show you on the device later if you want. And then you submit it to the marketplace, where we do those things like making sure you don't do anything bad, making sure you don't have any content that's against our guidelines. And we verify it, and we sign it, and we send it off to marketplace for users to use. And then finally, we've looked at cloud, client, and tools. The last thing is the portal services, so the things that you use to actually get your application out there. Now, the developer portal is developer.windowsphone.com. And here you can do things like learn. You can get documentation. You can get samples. You can read about our content guidelines. Obviously, you get the tools to build. This is also where you publish. So you set up an account with the marketplace. It's $99 US a year. Unfortunately, I don't have New Zealand dollars for you, but in the US, it's $99 a year. That gives you unlimited paid app submissions and up to 5 free app submissions for free. And then after that, you have to pay for each free application, essentially so that you don't dump an endless number of free, low-quality applications on the marketplace so that users have to sift through lots and lots of junk. So we're really going for a quality approach here by limiting the number of free applications to 5 for free. That said, you can use what we call trial mode in your application. So you can have an application or a game. Let's say you sell it for $5. But you can enable trial mode, just like on Xbox console. So the user downloads the game for free, or the app for free. And they can use it for some time. And you as a developer decide what functionality they have for free, whether it's the number of levels they can use, or the number of screens they can see, or the number of times they can play it. And once they've exceeded that, or if they want to continue past that, you present them with some UI to go to the marketplace to purchase your app. They pay for it, and they continue on the application. So we have a very seamless trial to full game in-place upgrade experience, just like the Xbox, if anyone's bought trial games on the Xbox. Very different to having a light version that you play, then you uninstall, and you uninstall the full version. Right? You install once, you play it. If you don't like it, you uninstall it. If you like it, you pay, and you continue using the application without any disruption. And so the deployment process is pretty basic. You develop and debug with the tools. You submit and validate to us. We certify it and sign it. Then it goes to our deployment services into Marketplace, and then from the Marketplace, the user can deploy it onto their phone. It's a very, very simple process. So kind of winding up now, the resources, there's developer.windowsphone.com, as I mentioned before. This is where you get the tools. Excuse me. It's where you can get our forums for asking questions, links to our design guidelines, content guidelines, etc. The Windows Team blog has a particular channel specifically for the phone, and there's some Twitter things you can look at on the right there. Sorry, I don't know what the right word is. Hashtags. I'm not a Twitter user. And then Mix 10 videos, if you want to look at the videos we did for Mix, there's also TechEd US videos, and I believe TechEd Australia videos, essentially. So if you don't get to all the sessions here, or you want to see a session that isn't available here that was available at one of those other conferences, you can go and look at them. We have a ton of related content here, some great sessions on the phone, sessions on geolocation, etc. So these are all in your little booklets. You can figure that out. Please fill out the evaluation forms. These are very important for us. They help us make the conference better. They help us get better content to you. And there's this thing called Tweet a Nugget. If you have a Twitter account, unlike me, and you tweet something interesting about a session, so something you learned or something that was new to you in a session, and you include the TechEd New Zealand and the Nugget hashtags, people will be watching for those, and they will find the best ones, and they will hand out a keyboard and a mouse. So the idea is not to say, I saw this session, it sucked, or I saw this session, it was good. The idea is to say, I saw this session, and I learned X, Y, Z. And if the powers that be think that you have the best tweet of the day, you could win a mouse and a keyboard. And you can enter as many times as you like. So there's terms and conditions there, but please, if you're on Twitter,